Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. As some of you may know, we've got a federal election going on, and I've been trying to reach out to some politicians from different parties from across the GTA to profile them and ask them why they're running, what the policies are, what they think their chances of winning are, what their game plan is, etc. And I ran across someone who has a reasonably impressive resume. Kaukab Usman is the NDP candidate in Mississauga, Erin Mills. Ms. Usman, welcome to our show. How are you?
Thank you so very much. I am fine. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it is great to be on your show.
Well, it's great to meet you. So you've got really quite an impressive resume. You graduated from Wayne State University with a master's in educational leadership. And you're currently the founder of the Center for Economic Integration of Immigrant Professionals. That's right. Pretty impressive.
Thank you.
This center, where is it located? Is it in Toronto, Mississauga? Whereabouts is it?
It is in Mississauga, and it is basically set up and launched, to help and assist the immigrant professionals who come into the country. And I think Canada is very fortunate, and so are the people who come to Canada, because they're the cream of the crop with a lot of experience and education degrees as high as PhDs and masters and engineering degrees and all. But once they come into the country, the challenge that they face is that the experience and the degree on which they are given immigration becomes irrelevant once they step into the country. So, and the struggle is very painful, and I'm part of that experience. So it is a lived experience. And I believe that, all these systemic barriers which kind of impede their success, and it is kind of depriving Canada from the experience, which is very unique, and it is international, and it is diverse, and we are not benefiting from it. So I actually started this organization to help these people to get access to the information, because one of the biggest things that is lacking is that people do not even have information of the resources that are available. This is not a common knowledge, and you have to find it on your own through your own connections. And even for, getting connected to volunteering and all these different experiences that may connect you with the right people. So that is the number one thing. And then the second hurdle that comes in, that all your experience that you've had over years from different countries that you bring with it, that becomes totally, it's ignored, it is irrelevant. And then we start talking about Canadian experience. And then the Canadian experience is like, no matter what degree and what experience you bring, you have to start at a very entry-level position, whereas these people coming have had 20 plus years of experience. And then they are told, find something at Tim Hortons and pour coffee. So that is no way helping those people to move forward. And they kind of get stuck in these menial jobs, which is very, very demoralizing for them. And also, it is not benefiting the country. And the one very good example is, for example, during the pandemic, Canada had to request, India to give vaccines to them. And we have all those brains from all over the world. And why are we not putting them to use? And why are we going to other countries begging for things as menial as PPEs and, masks and stuff like that? And this is just not, I think it is not befitting for a country like Canada.
So we attract people to Canada and we evaluate them based on their educational qualifications and their experience. But when they get here, we don't value that experience. We ask them what their Canadian experience is. Sounds like a problem. And I congratulate you for establishing this organization. But now you've decided to run for the NDP in a federal election. Tell me, is this the first time that you're running?
It's the first time that I'm running, when I'm the first person in my family getting into politics, because my family is mostly, people from public service and doctors and engineers. So I think basically I'm a social activist. I am a person who stands up for anything that is right. It is for fairness, for justice. And doesn't matter if it affects me or not. It is anybody around me that I find is not being treated fairly. I will stand up for that cause. And throughout my professional career, which spans over academia, public-private sectors, and international development sectors, I have always worked with marginalized and vulnerable communities. So I just get this is my motivation, and I am not cut out for a job which is 9 to 5 and just get a paycheck and go home. I have to have that piece attached to my professional journey where I am able to contribute and make a difference. And that gives me some kind of joy, which is very personal.
Fantastic.
And second, yeah, and the second thing probably, I think what motivated me was also, there was a situation in my life. Excuse me, I had a medical emergency, and I got this second lease of life, and I've always been praying to God, to give me an opportunity to give back. So I don't know what that opportunity is and if this is the opportunity, but I do feel it is my calling, and it is an opportunity for me to do something. And I do not want to be called a politician, because there's a very negative connotation to it. But I'm an activist. I'm someone who would stand up for the right thing, and that is what I am fighting for. It is for justice, for economic inclusion. That is the biggest thing on my agenda.
Awesome. We're chatting tonight with Kaukab Usman, who is the candidate in the federal election from Mississauga Erin Mills for the New Democratic Party. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Kaukab Usman in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're trying to canvass and profile different candidates from different political parties across Mississauga and across GTA as we're embarked on this summer/fall federal election that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced and set us upon. We are meeting today Kaukab Usman, who is the NDP candidate in Mississauga Erin Mills. Mississauga Erin Mills is a riding on the west side of Mississauga. Kaukab, you've got really, quite an impressive resume. Let me just review for people some of your positions. You've got a master's degree in educational leadership from Wayne State University. That's after you got a master's degree in English literature at the University of Punjab, a master's degree in English literature at the University of Punjab, and I presume an undergraduate at some point in time as well. And then you were a program consultant for World Learning, a scholarship coordinator for Humanity First International, a donor relationship coordinator for the Canada Mathey Educational Trust, an advisor to the board of Restoration and Empowerment for Social Transition. And then recently, you become the founder of the Center for Economic Integration of Immigrant Professionals. That's a very impressive resume and someone who's been involved, as you say, in social justice for a long period of time. You've also been a member of the Economic Task Force for Appeal Poverty, the Strategic Action Group, and a member of the Mayor's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee for the city of Mississauga, and you were a champion for the Diversity and Inclusion Roundtable. Wow. And then I read that your passion is diversity. And you talk about that you're a strategic and visionary leader with deep understanding of social and economic challenges of underinvested youth and communities, passionate about changing challenges into opportunities for the underserved. What an incredibly interesting background that you've got. And now you've explained that because of a second lease on life, you've decided to maybe get involved in politics. This is your first run at politics. Why the NDP?
Because, my ideology and my passion for justice kind of only matches with NDP. And I've seen the Liberals, I've seen what Conservatives have delivered. I believe that, they make promises and they do not deliver. And at the time of the election, again, we have a basket basket full of goodies that is again distributed to people. We'll do this, we'll do that. But you see, when their time is to do things, they do not deliver. So I believe that a person, the Jagmeet Singh, has the lived experience for all the things that I've experienced as an immigrant, and having that experience, people, I think, can deliver better and be more effective.
Now, I think Mississauga Erin Mills, and I may be wrong on the statistic, but has more Muslims in Mississauga Erin Mills than any other riding in Canada. Your competition, the incumbent, is a young female Muslim lawyer. How do you think you're playing at the doors? What's the reaction you get at the doors? Do you think you've got a chance of winning?
You know, it is, everything is not about winning. Some things are ideology. Sometimes, you know, you have to start somewhere. I'm not saying, and I do not have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen. I am going to give my very best. And I do see that people are supportive of NDP, but at the same time, there are different other things that I hear from people. People are not even ready for an election. They don't want to, they're so disillusioned with the system. They don't want to hear and see anybody at their doors talking about politics because they say that everybody is the same. But you see, my answer or response to them is that we have to take a different approach to get a new solution. And they are kind of leaning towards it, but then they're kind of afraid that, I mean, this is socialism or whatever. It is not socialism. It is basically fighting for the right of the common man. And, we have seen the history of NDP. The Serb, for example, is the biggest example that I can quote, where NDP has been at the back end forcing and pushing for it. And that is why Serb was delivered to people and moved from $1,000 to $2,000 bi-weekly. So the credit goes to NDP, and Liberal is only delivering. It's the face because it's the government, but it is the money of the people that is being put back in their pockets.
So in 2008, 2011, Jack Layton was the leader of the NDP, and the NDP had its best showing ever, winning ridings across the country with the Orange Wave, and didn't win in Mississauga, but came second, even when it came third with a very powerful increase in its electoral counts, in the election votes that it received. What do you think is going to happen with Jagmeet Singh? Is Jagmeet Singh and are you going to be able to appeal to the voters of Mississauga?
We'll try our best, which is, whatever is humanly possible, we'll do that. And I do see that there is, as I said, there is an awakening. There is also a liking for it, and people are disappointed. And the very timing of the election is going against the Liberals to a certain extent. People who were Liberal voters, they are kind of not happy with this whole thing because it is only based on the personal interest of an individual. It is not keeping in mind that we are in the middle of pandemic, and there is a viral that we are also Delta viral, which we are facing. And also because people are just coming out of that pandemic period and mode, and they're getting back into normal life. And then they're, suddenly thrust upon with this election.
So it seemed like Justin Trudeau wanted to call this election because he felt that he needed a majority government such that he'd be able to put in place, at least that was his argument, that he'd be able to put in place the programs to more effectively get us out of the economic tolls of the recession. That said, the NDP has been supporting the Liberal Party through most of the last year and a half, 2 years, when they've had issues and they needed to get the votes through Parliament. The NDP has supported them. So why do you think they deserve a majority, or why don't they deserve a majority, and can rely on the NDP to continue to support them, or should be able to rely on the NDP to continue to support them?
Right. You see, Liberals had a clear-cut majority in the first time that they came into power. So absolute majority, and what did they deliver? They only talked and did not deliver anything. So based on their track record, why do they want a clear-cut majority again? I mean, if there had been some things that they had done in the past for the people, I think they would have had this kind of clear-cut majority. And NDP is supporting Liberals not blindly, but it is supporting on issues which are beneficial or helpful for the common man. For example, the Serb, also fighting for other things which have not been put in place, like the universal child health care, Pharmacare, child care, all of those things which are, a part of every man, of a common man's everyday struggle. So it's not that NDP is just supporting them on anything and everything. It is just on the issues that are very close to NDP. And
it's interesting. So what you're effectively saying is you think that the Liberal government is a better government when it's in a minority supported by and challenged by the NDP than it is if it's a majority government. It sounds like you think that the government has done better when they didn't have all the votes in the last 2 years and needed to get the NDP or other parties to support them than they were in the prior 4 years when they were a majority government. That's interesting. So bottom line, you say minority governments work.
I think it is, we should have a review our system also. The checks and balances should be there for people to, to deliver on what they promise, and should not come back to the next election or wait for the next election to, deliver all these things and make those new promises. So I'm not saying that it is always the minority government which works, but you see what I'm saying is that there has to be check and balances. And I don't buy the Liberals' argument that if they have the majority government, they will deliver or do better, because they didn't do anything when they had a clear-cut majority.
One of the big issues that Jagmeet Singh has come out with, and you just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, is national pharmacare. We pride ourselves in Canada about having universal health care, but on a sort of a spectrum of healthcare systems across the world, we are the second most privatized healthcare system in the G8 or G7. The United States being the most private, but us being the next, because in Europe that have universal health care, they also typically end up having universal eye care, dental care, and pharmacare. And we don't. And so Jagmeet has put a lot of effort on the idea of universal pharmacare. A lot of Canadians will get their pharmaceutical products covered by employees by their companies. But a lot of people, particularly in this era today, whether they're in the gig economy or whether they're contract employees or part-time employees, don't and have to pay out of pocket. There's lots of stories about people that don't take their medicine even though it's required because of that out-of-pocket expense. So tell me, do you think that we can afford as a government, as a country, as taxpayers, the cost of providing pharmaceutical products for free for everyone across the country?
I think it is only we have to set up priorities and to do the spending accordingly. We have the revenue and all of that, but it is not spent in the right places, or maybe our priorities are not set right. So if there is a will, there is a way. That's what I believe in. If you and when you are thinking that the rich people should contribute more towards the economy and they're taxed, and we generate those funds, I think that we can do it. It is basically just having a strategy in place, having your priorities straight, and also taking the right direction, the right approach. We can do it. I don't think there is any difficulty, because I do see a lot of waste in the system just because of the systemic barriers. And one of the things that is lacking, and which I see as an immigrant professional coming from a different background, is that we do not evaluate our systems, our processes, and they're misaligned, and they're also there's a kind of a waste that's going on. Everything the government is outsourced to different people, and there is no monitoring and evaluation of the quality of services that are delivered through these different agencies. So there has to be, the decisions have to be data driven. That is one thing which is lacking. We do not collect data. So our decisions are just, we don't know why we are making a decision. And the decisions are also are not reviewed on an annual basis to see if they're aligned, if they're delivering what they are put in place for. So and this is my lived experience. I've been in the country for the last 5 years, trying to get a job as per my qualifications, and I have failed. I haven't had a decent job which could pay for my expenses, everyday living. So I feel that, with all the qualification, all the experience that I have gathered over time, working with different governments, I am still not acceptable, and I cannot get a job. So that's the basis. Economic inclusion is the basis of all inclusions.
Economic inclusion is the basis of all inclusions. Fascinating. We're going to take a break. We're chatting tonight with Kaukab Usman, who is the candidate for the New Democratic Party in Mississauga, Erin Mills. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're profiling different candidates from different political parties from across Mississauga and the Greater Toronto Area, particularly ones that, frankly, have some resumes that I find interesting and have a point of view. I'm trying to give all different political parties an opportunity. And I came across Kaukab Usman, who's got really quite an impressive resume of background in social justice issues and particularly diversity and inclusion. And I want to read a little bit of something you said, Kaukab. I believe economic empowerment and inclusion is the key in catalyzing change, which I accelerated by organizing demand-driven skill training and job readiness programs collaboratively with industry giants. I believe economic empowerment and inclusion is the key in catalyzing change. Why?
You see, people cannot be productive and cannot contribute to anything unless they have food on the table and a roof on their head. If they're free from all these basic needs, only then they will go out and talk, be members of different organizations and contribute. But when they are just so swamped and they are so absorbed by putting food on the table, and this has affected the family life also, because everybody is running in different directions, because everybody has a job for $15 or $12 a day, and everybody is just scrambling to put food on the table or a roof on their heads. So there is no time for even family time, and there is no time for them to attend to all these finer details and the finer details which will build a community. And so I believe that once you give them that freedom from all these basic necessities of life, then they will be more productive and will be more effective, and the country will grow faster in every direction.
So how do you do that? It sounds like, frankly, a conservative once told me that the best social program is a job. And it sounds like you're telling me that the best social program is a job, that people need an income, a job to feel valued, to feel included, to have economic empowerment. So all these social programs are helpful, but the best thing we can do is actually get people employed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we need to start with that. And you see all these different employment agencies that we have out there, and the government has outsourced, giving them tons of money and giving them all the resources. But how many immigrant professionals have been employed through those agencies? Because you see, the whole understanding of an immigrant professional, which is the majority or the good majority living in Mississauga, they're driving cabs, they're going for assembly line jobs. And for them, just getting somebody a job just to, barely get by is not a job. A job is which is well paid as per your relevant expertise.
So what's the challenge? Is it that we just Canadian companies just don't value foreign education and foreign experience? Is it that we need to ensure that immigrants get trained in Canadian ways and Canadian, what's the problem? Why can't these people, these immigrants that have got what you describe and what I appreciate are great educations and good experiences, why can't they get jobs in their chosen profession?
It is basically, you see, the employer is the main factor in the world of work. So the training, the educational system, the curriculum, all has to be driven by the employer. In these employment agencies, there is no employer at the end of the day to absorb these people, and we're just working on the resume, doing it in different ways, but it is not getting us anywhere. But I've worked as a director of career planning and placement, and I know that unless you have that connection, that is the key thing in the educational system and also in the world of work. So I believe that if we give that opportunity, if we have those employers, if we have those connections, and we have people are trained accordingly, according to their the demand-driven skills and training, so people will have job. And once they have jobs, I think the whole thing will fall in place. So that is what I believe, that our approach is misaligned. And we think that, giving them an assembly job or a Tim Horton job, which is barely paying anything for a person who's done his PhD, is just not making him happy, or it is not something that he came to this country for. So the opportunities, we have to remove all these impediments. For example, if you have to go back to get a certificate or whatever, because their experience that they've acquired over time has no value here. So when you go to the educational system, the curriculum that is designed for these different courses or certificates, they're stretched over a year's time, and then they're so inflexible that you have to take that coursework in a certain manner that it has been determined. So how do you expect that person to put food on the table, go to school full time, and do all the things? So the flexibility, because I've worked in the US, and I feel that US provides you with the opportunity to prove that you have the skills to do the job. They bring you in, and and immigrants do not have networks or anything. They're very resilient and very innovative. So give them the opportunity, let them prove that they have the skills. There is 101 ways of doing the same thing. What is Canadian experience? I've asked Costy's executive director, and I was very frustrated at that time. And I said, can you tell me what Canadian experience is? And he had no answer. So I want people to, if they talk about Canadian experience, then they have to spell it out and say A, B, C, D. And we then can figure out where do we fall short. Because you see, as I said, there are 101 ways. And when we talk about diversity inclusion, diversity means that we are appreciating the uniqueness that you're bringing, which can be in terms of your color, skin, whatever, your skill set, your education. But as long as you can do the job, you should be given that opportunity. Why not?
Richard Florida, one of the top strategic professors and consultants on building great cities, said that there's three key successes to building strong cities. And he called it the 3 T's. And one was talent, human capital. The second was technology. And the third was tolerance. And he said the key to success is those cities that tolerate, that have diversity, that have inclusion, because to be successful, you got to bring ideas from around the world. You got to have connections back from a trade and investment standpoint to home countries around the world, and that it's really different people of different backgrounds, whether they be from different religions or ethnicities, or just different educational backgrounds, to challenge each other to come up with the best ideas. And so I think that is key. But let's talk about some of the other policies that you're undoubtedly talking about at the doorstep, and that Jagmeet Singh has been talking about. We talked about Pharmacare, and the basic tenet of the NDP's policies, this year, are about making life more affordable. The second affordability tenet that Jagmeet Singh has been talking about is affordable housing. And he talks about building 500,000 affordable housing units and putting a tax on foreign buyers and sellers of properties to make it more affordable for all of us. And then getting rid of the GST, HST on the building of rental housing. How do you think these three things and or others are going to attack the affordability of housing crisis? Because, when I go around Mississauga Erin Mills, you can't get a nice house for, under $1 million, or at least under, $750,000. And the chance that my kids are going to be able to buy a house in Mississauga Erin Mills, or all of Mississauga, is a lot lower today than it may have been a generation ago. So how are we going to change this?
I think some of the things that Jagmeet mentioned, and I agree with, I think what is happening is that people, the foreign investors are coming into the country, and you will not believe that they're buying the whole street. Some of them have that kind of money. And so you see, if there is, it is all about demand and supply. And if people are ready to pay that kind of price, then people like us living in Canada who probably do not have a stable job or well-paid jobs, we kind of fall behind. We cannot even afford to buy a house. And this is exactly what I'm experiencing right now, because I lived for 11 plus years in Windsor. And when I sold my house there and I've come to Mississauga, I cannot, I think it is I don't think I will be able to afford a house here. So we need to put some things in place. And for example, whatever Jagmeet said, that foreign investors. And secondly, I think also the government needs to build houses in order to provide that kind of opportunities to people. And there are so many of things, you know, you can have small houses. You see on Facebook, there are some very cute functional houses, which are good enough for small families, and they are not that expensive. Even the containers have been turned into houses. So we have to think of innovative ways. And when you're bringing all these people from different parts of the world, they're going to give you those ideas because they have actually lived in those circumstances, and they know how to go around those different constraints. And definitely money is one of the biggest constraints.
One of the other issues that Jagmeet has been talking about is childcare. And the Liberals have this plan for childcare that they've been trying to implement, and they just have signed up a couple of different provinces to it. The Conservatives don't want to have this $10 a day childcare provided by the state. They want to give a tax credit such that people can go out and get their own childcare. Tell me, how does the NDP policy differ from the Liberal policy and the Conservative policy on childcare?
I think that when you give a tax credit, it's not going to help the common man or the middle class people, because you see, you give them some fixed amount of money, but the people in the industry will raise prices, and sometimes you will not be able to compete or beat those prices. So it is better that something is already there, which is price controlled with the quality ensured. That is going to make it affordable for people who may be living, who are middle class, or maybe living under that middle class radar. So I believe that that is important. And for the Liberals, they haven't done anything so far. So they've been only talking, and that is what people are also saying on the street, that we haven't seen anything and we are very disappointed. So they have yet to prove what they were saying, because they have not implemented it. So I believe that the most realistic plan is that of Jagmeet, because Jagmeet is coming from a middle class family and he has seen all those struggles and he knows the ins and outs. So somebody like Justin Trudeau, who has never experienced these things, how would he know what the struggles are of a common man? So I believe and trust more in a person who has the lived experience than somebody who just comes to the table and knows nothing and has no data to make his basis decisions on, and he's putting policies together.
The NDP has also talked about making a stronger deal for workers, and Jagmeet's been talking about including paid sick leave, a living wage, and stronger bargaining rights for workers. Stronger bargaining rights sounds like you want more unionization. Is that right?
I think when we're putting any rule or law in place, we have to see both sides. And this is what I've seen here, that the system kind of favors one and leaves out the other. That's not how it is going to work. Yes, the workers have rights, but the employer also has rights. So I think we have to come to a common ground where the rights of both sides are protected. It is not that, with this unionized or whatever the environment, you're going to make it like, it's only for the employees and not for the employers. I don't think that is the approach that he's going to take. But it is important to have that kind of protection, because I see that with the job market that we have, where there's so much competition even for getting a volunteering job, it is important that we protect people who are in the job, because once you have that kind of safety net, or you have that feeling of confidence that you will not lose your job just on the whim of anybody, then probably you are more productive and you're loyal to the company, because the most important thing that the company has to look for and to take care of is the employer. If the employee is happy, the company will definitely progress and be more productive.
Jagmeet's also talked about fair trade, and I guess he thinks that some of the trade deals that we've entered into haven't been fair trade. Tell me how you're going to change the international trade deals that Canada's entered into.
It is very important that, we have to look at the fairness of the deal. We have to protect our rights. We have to see how it is going to benefit us. But at the same time, we should not be looking at things, where we are taking advantage of anybody. So I believe that Jagmeet's approach to entering into deals would be fair for the people based on the past record and based on what he has delivered. We do believe, and I trust him, that it is going to be a fair deals that we would have at the international level.
We're chatting tonight with Kaukab Usman, who is the NDP candidate in Mississauga Erin Mills in the upcoming federal election. We're going to take a break for some final messages and come back with some concluding comments from Kaukab in just a minute. I'm going to ask her about residential schools, and I'm going to ask her about Afghanistan. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with the new Democratic Party candidate in Mississauga Erin Mills. Mississauga Erin Mills is a large riding, one of the larger ridings in Mississauga. It's very ethnically diverse, but also has one of the largest Muslim populations in all of Canada. It's the western side of Mississauga, and it's for the last two terms been the incumbent is a young Muslim lawyer, and our candidate today, Kaukab Usman, thinks that she can beat her, and is out knocking on doors trying to do so. Kaukab, you're from Pakistan. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, we saw a tragedy in Afghanistan, in Kabul airport. Just last week, there were dozens of people killed by a suicide bomber and some American soldiers. Canada exited Afghanistan 10 years ago, though we kept some people in from a training standpoint. The Americans exited are exiting right now after 20 years in Afghanistan. What do you think we should do? Should we never have gone in? Should we have stayed in? What are the mistakes?
I think there are enough issues in our own country, in our own backyard. And I don't think that foreign intervention is required unless it is, asked for. It is a mistake. And I think US has been repeatedly doing it and repeatedly failing in it. So I think they should have learned a lesson, and we should learn lesson from them, that it is not, military solution is never a good solution for any conflict in any country. So I think it was a mistake for whoever went into Afghanistan, because not knowing Afghanistan is a country which is very rugged, it is not like it's not like any other country. It is different. The people are different. They're resilient. And without knowing the culture and without knowing the background, you go into it and try to fight it out. It's not going to help. And it didn't help, actually. And then you leave the country in a mess. And, all these people who have been orphaned, these children, and all that disaster that has happened. And then nobody's coming out to help them. And I mean, I can't forget that picture where people are just, sitting on the wings of the plane and trying to get out of Afghanistan, and people are scared for their lives. So I think, first of all, we should not create that mess around the world, wherever it may be. I mean, let people have support instead of coming in and just bombing people and making people orphans and all of that. I don't think we need to do that. All of us have enough problems at hand and in our own backyards that we need to handle to make this world a peaceful and a livable place.
Deal with our own backyard first. Sounds like good sage advice. In our own backyard, regrettably, we had a tragedy that, has been around for a long period of time, and we should have become more knowledgeable about it, but became a lot more aware of it because of the finding of a whole bunch of unmarked graves at residential schools across the country. Some people call it Canada's original sin. Some people call it our national tragedy. Tell me, what do you think we should do about this situation?
I always believe in actions. And I don't like people just taking out a handkerchief and wiping tears. It is not going to help anything. I don't even believe that all this lip service that we do, I don't believe in it. We have to prove it that we are really sincere. We have to help them out. They are as human as we are. They bleed the same way as we do. They have the same desires and wishes as how can we think that they're lesser than human beings? That's not the right approach, or it is very inhuman to think like that. So, I mean, I cannot believe that how these people had done to these children, and taking them. I mean, even if for a second, if we think that our children are taken away, and somebody comes and knock at your door and takes your children away, how would we feel? Why are their children lesser than our children? They are the same. So I believe that we need to take strong, concrete actions for the economic empowerment, for the social empowerment, and to bring them in the folds of like all of us. The same facilities, the same services, what we enjoy, they should enjoy. And I believe that once we make all the facilities that are available to the parliamentarians, to the people in the government, and the people and the common man, there will be no friction. People will be happy because this is what everybody is getting. It's not like they have the perks and we don't. Why do we have this kind of discrimination in services, in perks, in benefits, in anything?
Excellent. Last question. We've had a good 45-minute conversation this evening, but the majority of people, you're only going to have 30 seconds to a minute to talk to as they open the door and you present yourself to them at the doorstep. Tell me, what's your 30-second to 1 minute pitch for yourself at the door when someone says, why should I vote for you?
Because we are fighting for you. And we have a record that we have proved that we have your interest at our heart. For example, the CERB, and everything that you find has been delivered for the interest of the people is because Jagmeet is at the back end who is pushing for it. So if he can do this for you while not being in power, what do you think he will do when he is in power and he has got more resources at his hands? So yes, I think based on the track record going forward, you can trust him.
Kaukab Usman, the candidate for the New Democratic Party in Mississauga, Erin Mills, thank you so much for joining us. If people are impressed by you and want to donate to you or vote for you or get a sign, what's your website that they can go to?
It's NDP.ca, and under team, my name is there, Kaukab Usman. So I know that my name is a little difficult. It's a tongue twister. People keep mispronouncing it. It is Kaukab Usman.
Kaukab Usman, Mississauga, Erin Mills. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and good luck.
Thank you very much. I need it. And thank you very much for having me on your show. I am very humbled. Thank you.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much. We're going to continue this series of profiling different conservative, liberal, NDP, Green, and even some of the other parties during this election time period. Stay with us every night at 6 o'clock on 960 a.m. Good night, everybody.